Right, guys, we're back again, and what difference a week makes? We've got to get battered by West Ham. No performance, no nothing in the one London derby. A week later, we play against Chelsea at home, and it's the complete polar opposite. And now the race for a top four spot is literally on again. Joining me tonight, as it stands, I've got James. How you doing, James?
I'm well, thank you. How is everybody?
Warmer than yesterday.
Yeah, it was a bit cold, wasn't it?
And I've got Nikki. How you doing, Nikki?
I'm alright, thanks. You?
Yeah, I'm good. Especially after yesterday's result.
Yeah.
We sort of needed that. And
yeah, we did.
Lastly, we're joined by Mike. How you doing, Mike?
Doing well, very much so. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I've got there are other guests that are meant to be coming on. One's travelling on a train back to the Midlands. One's got family at the moment. He'll come on later on in the show. And Kenny Ken is disappeared on the face of the earth, but we'll find him and we'll get him on at some point during the show. So let's just get. So, oh, there he is, Sweet the Devil. Barely, one sec. Yeah, I can hear you. One sec. Yeah, no worries.
I am, like I said, we spoke yesterday, I completely forgot about it today. Rush take the kids to the cinema after the football, and I just went, shit, let me just get my ass here. So I'm going to get myself properly ready.
Well, while he's sorting himself out, James, what was your thoughts on yesterday's game as a whole?
Very pleased. I thought I've got a bit. I think I've got a bit of an echo on my end. Maybe that might have gone.
I think just plugging these headphones in.
Yeah.
Very plugging the headphones in, James.
Yeah. Can you? Yeah.
Just me plugging the headphones, James, mate.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was a really good team performance from front to back. And I thought it was real tactically very strong as well. And we showed a lot of hunger. I mentioned on my Arsenal Fan TV interview as well. When they come out for the warm-up, I looked at them and I thought, there's something about us today. We looked hungry. You know, even in the warm-up, there was players making that extra 10-yard sprint, pointing where they wanted the ball to come, pinging passes that were very accurate. And I thought, you know, we look hungry. And, you know, we've done very well. I thought it was just a tremendous finish. And I think it just goes to show with Emery's hand as well, tactically, we look a bit robust. I mean, we're going 2-0 up. We didn't really look in danger. I mean, they had spells, of course. But I know we had a difficult Christmas period, but I think there's definitely good signs for the new year.
Mike, what about yourself?
Yeah, I was thrilled. Wasn't expecting it. Was expecting to be sad and depressed and wishing you wouldn't have invited me on. To be honest with you, but super glad to be here today, and just proud to be an Arsenal fan and to be part of the new Emery era because he won us that game yesterday with his clever tactics, his compact use of the defense, smothering Hazard, the man marking of Jorginho. It's a crazy, really, how it's almost too easy to shut down their main playmaker and shut down their entire game. And we looked as a team, we looked so much happier. I don't even know if that's the right word, really. But last week it looked like the guys had just had their best friend put on the bench and they didn't like it. And this weekend, I don't know what went on. We'll never know. But that looked like a bunch of players who looked like they could compete and wanted to compete. And long may that continue, Ryan.
Yeah, definitely. And what about yourself, Nikki?
I thought that the major difference was the confidence in defence. I think that as soon as they had their first sort of defensive success, they sort of felt better.
Door into the living room. Why can't you just use the door handle like everybody else?
Sorry.
That's all right. Don't worry. I just think that as soon as the first defensive success, like successful tackle was in, I just thought they sort of settled. And once they settled with the defence, I think that they just thought, now we can go and play. And I think that's what the difference is. I think that once they have the confidence there with the first tackle that had worked, it just allowed them to sort of press on. And I think like the defensive stat, well, the stat that Chelsea didn't have a shot until the 82nd minute says a lot about the defence, because they're not a team that sits back, Chelsea. So the fact that they managed to contain them that way, I think, is a large part of why we played like we did and why we all felt confident like we did. And I think that's part of the reason why it was such a sort of enjoyable match to watch, because you never felt nervous, because you knew that they had it covered, basically.
Nicky's dead right, Ryan. That's
Yeah.
we for almost 10 years, probably, maybe longer. Those games make us nervous defensively, but she's exactly right. The solidity in the defense wasn't just in the clean sheet; it was in the general performance and the seriousness with which they seem to be defending as a unit. So she's spot on.
Yeah, definitely. It's no coincidence as well. Talking about clean sheets is what I was looking at last night and I got home. This is league-wise our fourth clean sheet of the season. It's just looking at the performance as well as because I was obviously there. It's just frustrating to see us do that sort of performance yesterday, but can't be sort of bipolar. Sort of 1 week we do that, and then the next we won't. It's like the big games at home week, and we get something out of them. We get these sort of performances in, and yeah, it's frustrating because if we'd been more consistent, we wouldn't be behind the likes of Chelsea and Spurs the way we are. But Kenny, what did you think of the game yesterday?
I think what it is that Chelsea were there for the taking. If you look at the tactics, is that we got our tactics spot on. I think a couple of clubs have shown us a blueprint how to beat Chelsea. Our rivals in N7 in a game at Wembley in just in end of November, where I said yesterday to on Arsenal Fan TV that Chelsea are a very nice team. They reminded me of the Arsenal sides under Arsene Wenger with Fabregas, Nasri, Hleb and all that, where we like to dominate possession. We like I said, pass our way through teams. And what we like to do, what that Chelsea side likes to do, is like to do it at pace. So it's to the extent that they don't really need, like I said, a kind of a centre forward. That Hazard is more than capable to play on as a false number 9 against teams outside the top 6. Chelsea will be very successful playing that way, because simple reasons that if they're allowed to have time on the ball, they're allowed to move the ball quickly, and they're allowed to get the runners, then they will absolutely destroy teams with or without a striker, or with an average striker, Morata. But against the better teams who can actually make Chelsea defend, you have to get a high tempo and get them turning. And I think that's what we did in the first half, is with our high tempo, with the 4-3-3 formation with Ramsey. Not so much with Ramsey, but with Lacazette's movement, Aubameyang's pace. It got Chelsea on the back foot. And when we didn't have the ball, what we did is we pressed them all over the place. Poor old Jorginho, was awful yesterday. We really made him look ordinary. Like I said, the same with Kovacevic, looked very ordinary as well. And we kind of isolated Hazard and stopped the supply getting to him. And I think that's where Emery got his tactics wrong. But I think what it is that perhaps Pochettino showed him the way. And I think moving forward in terms of like Chelsea, but we can just mention Chelsea for a minute. I think against better sides in Europe and in the Premiership, they will struggle with that formation unless they get better personnel and get someone who can hold the ball up. But first, I must say, like in addition to what I was saying, it just shows you that if you obey your manager's instructions and everyone sings with the same hymn sheet, you'll get good results. And I think what's been happening is that we've had some injuries. We've had certain players not singing off the same hymn sheet in certain games, and that's cost us big. And obviously, there's a casualty
in terms of like one member of the personnel who can't get a game. A lot of that is to do with him not being able to sing from the hymn sheet. And like I said, the conclusion to everything is that if you want to play for Unai, you have to obey his instructions.
No, I think that's a great point, Kenny. And as I said before, you think of the Emery sides of the past, the likes of Sevilla and Valencia and Paris Saint-Germain. They all had that ethos. Specifically, it's particularly Sevilla and Valencia, where they all ran together. They all hunted in packs. They all won that ball back, and they all went forward. And for him to only be in the job 8 months, and there are signs of that coming together with us. There's still a long way to go, of course. We're by no means the finished article, but like with his subs, and who he brought on yesterday, and he's making his subs, putting on El Neni at the end of the game, for example, to shore things up and get us over the line. It's all his experience is relevant, and we're lucky to have him, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, just getting on to the sub situation itself as well. Obviously, me, you, Kenny were there yesterday, and when Lacazette went off for the second time now, in the space of a couple of weeks, he's come off as a sub, as a tactical sub, and selections of our fan base that were there were booing the substitution, even though it had a positive impact both times. And yesterday, the game was pretty much done by then. It was just a tactical sub that see out the game and give Aubameyang more pace going forward.
I think Ryan, in mitigation to like some of the fans as well, I think what it is Lacazette was having a good game. He's got very quick feet and he moves the ball very. I think what it was is that I can see where Emery's coming from. The game was won.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And I think when the game's won, sometimes you want to sort of like I said, make sure, shore things up. Like I said, don't conserve too energy, because you remember I thought by the 60th minute yesterday, I think we're dead on our feet, and we did need to freshen up players. Probably, I think what it was is that maybe Aubameyang could have come on because he looked very tired towards the end. But I think what it was is that he wanted Aubameyang's pace and outlet. So when we are trying to clear the ball, Aubameyang's not very good at holding the ball. But what he does, if you can play him down on side like channel, and is that he'll get Chelsea in the retreat. It will discourage Chelsea from putting men, like I said, pressing and then trying to put men forward, because that way that we can do them on a counter attack. And then in terms of like Anelli coming in, that I understand the situation, but that was because of his injury, which is a very bad one, which I'm sorry to say. I wish.
Yeah. Also, I took into consideration as well the fact that we've got a game on Friday night against Man United at home in the cup. No matter taking it seriously or not, he's got to take players off and give them a rest as well. I'm assuming he's got Lacazette in mind for Friday night.
Press from the front, and I think that's what we did. And Chelsea just ran out of ideas.
Can I add to that, Ryan?
Yeah, go on, yeah.
Well, I think there's a couple of things that work there. I think everybody saw that Lacazette and Ramsey were two of our better players, both offensively and defensively. And, Ramsey was so important in his personal one-on-one job on Jorginho. And Lacazette just had overall a good game, both offensively and defensively. Well, I think that the fans need to maybe consider that, to play at that level, with that level of intensity for 90 minutes, I believe we had the highest running stats in the history of the Premier League, either in Arsenal's history. That's just not necessarily possible for everybody on the field for different reasons. And I think that even though those players are playing well, I think that the coach's job is to identify when that they're going to drop off. And I think we've got an intelligent coach. And I think that those two players potentially were going to drop off. And that's where he knows a lot more than we do. The other piece of it for me is that we're in a little bit of trouble long term if we play Aubameyang and Lacazette for 90 minutes. Because essentially there are two forwards that have been trusted. He hasn't yet trusted Eddie Nketiah. So if he plays Aubameyang and Lacazette for 90 minutes, game in, game out, then we might be okay in the short term, but in the long term, and I don't think we're buying a centre forward unless anybody else has heard something, then I'm not sure in April and May that we're going to be up to much up front because they're going to be fatigued. So I think that's why he keeps bringing off Lacazette, is because he's got to do it to one of them. He's got to preserve one of them at least for the run-in.
Also, I think that's another reason why, because there's been points in this season where he has played one or the other. He'll bench one and play the other. I think that's another, as you said, a reason why he does that. Because he ain't got full faith in Eddie sort of coming in as a backup at the moment. He needs to then rest one, as you said, rest one, play the other, and vice versa. So then they don't get fatigued by the end of come April, May when we need them most. But it could come down to this top four race could go down to literally the last couple of games. The way things are looking.
I think that with Lacazette as well, he does slightly work harder in a sense than Aubameyang, because he is just everywhere. If you watch the game, he is just not only on the ball, off the ball as well. And I think that if you are going to take one of them off, if one of them is the tired or one of the two, it is going to be Lacazette. And as you say, if you've got a match coming up at the end of the week that is a cup match against another big good side that are on a bit of a roll themselves, you're going to need all the best players you can get if you want to progress further in the FA Cup, if you're going to take that seriously. So sometimes you can understand where the fans are coming from because they're enjoying watching them play a game and they're doing really well. But then you've also got to step back and think, well, yes, we've won the game. They've not had a shot, because by the time when he came off, Chelsea hadn't even had a shot on goal. So it's like, where are their play going to come from? So it's good, just take him off, give him a rest, get him ready for the end of the week, and then we've got both games covered, so to speak. And I think like Lacazette is the one out of the two that does work that slight bit harder and maybe needs that little bit more of a respite towards the end.
Yeah. Also, I've got some questions from the chat at the moment coming in as well whilst on all this. First one from Jace Doncor. Do you think Emery will persist with the 4-4-2 diamond? He doesn't think that he will. If different games, different tactics and all that. But he doesn't expect him to do it against United, even though Spurs did that against them weeks back and got a result. What do you guys think?
I think he adapts to every game. I don't think he has a set pattern. And I think he looks at each game individually, and that's what he does. He analyses it, sees where the strength's going to be for that game, and he puts out the team formation accordingly. I don't know whether he'll play it every single match. Some matches he'll play it, but I think that he is more likely to tinker with the system. And it works 90% of the time. There's been the odd game where obviously people have questioned what he's done, but 90% of the time he's got the tactics right. So I think that he will play it again. Obviously he will, but whether it will be the next match, I don't know, because I think he'll just analyse which is the best formation and go with that at the time.
Interesting.
Yeah, I totally agree. Sorry, so you first, right?
No, it's okay. Appreciate it, Kenny. Yeah, I was going to say, I think, interestingly enough, I think the diamond was all about Ramsey and all about him marking Jorginho. Jorginho is he's probably the most competent register in the league at doing what he does well, which is dictating play. Most teams don't have a guy like that. So I'm a fan of the diamond. I think it brings our players onto the field in their best positions. Quite honestly, I think it's impossible to say for two reasons, though. One, because Emery changes his formation so often. I counted 6 the other day that he's done this season. And plus, if we get Denis Suarez, if we get a winger, they're talking about Gelson Martins today and Malcolm yesterday. If that happens, then, and that's something he's been needing and wanting, then I'm assuming that our formation changes, especially if we bring in an out-and-out winger rather than an attacking midfielder. So hard to say, isn't it, really?
Yeah, totally agree with you, both Nicky and Mike as well, in terms of like I said, Emery's formations. I think with one thing Emery's done this season is that I think he's not just studied our opponents, he's looked at how we've played previously, especially against these kind of opponents. And I think in terms of like the formation from yesterday, against teams that are going to try and dominate the ball, then I think that formation may be used. Although I do think that in certain games, he's going to struggle to sort of justify playing Aubameyang and Lacazette together. One, because I think what's happening is that he doesn't want them to go into each other's spaces. Two, another thing as well, his options from the bench. I wouldn't, if we say, I wouldn't expect him to play that formation again because he does seem to like a Wobie alongside one of the strikers and maybe a Mkhitaryan, like I said, in terms of a three. And I think next week against Man United, it'll be dependent on what the team that Solskjaer plays. If Solskjaer plays his strong side, there's a lot of pace, then there's no way he's going to play that formation next week in the FA Cup because we're going to be assuming that there's going to be a lot of chasing. We're going to be a lot of chasing after their quick runners. So I agree with both Nicky and Mike. I can't see Emery doing that too many times. I think he'll just study opponents, study their strengths and study their weaknesses, and then judge it accordingly.
Yeah, I agree. But I think it's also good that he's doing that because I think that's asking players to be flexible in terms of attitudes, in terms of adapting to different tactics. Because we've had players through the years that haven't necessarily had their head screwed on when it comes to tactics and being disciplined in certain positions. And we've got a manager now that's demanding that of his players. And I agree with you three. I think he'll chop and change according to the opponent. And I think the flexibility that he's got and that he demands of his players will stand us in good stead.
Yeah, again, I echo what James has said. Totally agree with you all. He has, that's what he's been doing all season. Every other game, every other game, he does change tactics, change formation. And going by I've got a question in the chat, more questions in the chat, and sticking to that with adapting to the new changes and all that. Mesut Ozil, Kenny, let's start with you. We've been asked in the chat, do you think he'll get a run out on Friday? And but also add on to that, what do you think's going to happen? Do you think he'll be gone either this month or in the summer if he's not adapting? Because then he's coming. We have spoken on here.
Well, like I said, both. I think is also the first part of the question. I do expect Mesut Ozil to play to feature during the season, but I think what it is in terms of like what Emery wants, I don't think Emery, like the coach, can fit Mesut Ozil into a lot of all the games this season. He's going to look at certain games away from home, and even certain games at home where he's going to look at what we're Arsenal off the ball and how we beat teams in the Premiership. And judging by yesterday and what we've seen this season, we play our best football when our tempo's very high, and when we don't have the ball, we hunt in packs where everyone works their nuts off, and then runs whenever we don't have the ball. They're tracking back, they're harrying, they're pressing from the front. Because you've noticed we did at the front. Now I don't see Mesut Ozil being able to do that, especially in those sort of 6-pointers that we will be playing quite a lot this season, especially away from home against a Man City. So I think he'll play against Man United, and like I said, in certain games where teams are going to sit back, they're not going to commit too much. I think Mesut is definitely going to be considered for those sort of games where maybe you want someone to unlock the door, and like I said, just do that, one or two passes which can create a chance for our strikers and then open the game up more. In terms of the end of the season, I think Mesut Ozil's days are numbered, I'm afraid, because the simple reason is that I don't think that it's just like Unai Emery who has misgivings about his utilities of the football team. I think the club itself are trying to distance themselves from the previous regime. I'm not just talking about Arsene. I'm talking about Gazidis, and other members of staff, because you look what happened last year under Josh Kroenke. He was only meant to come here as a sort of a sabbatical from the United States, and he was only meant to observe. But what he did is that he stayed a lot longer than what he was supposed to have done, and a lot of people lost their jobs, including Arsene. And the only casualty from the regime was Sven Mislintat, Rao, and then Gazidis. Now Gazidis has now gone to AC Milan. Now people could say that Gazidis has gone to AC Milan because all his work is done, or he could have gone before he was pushed. But what's happening is that the poster boy for the old regime is Mesut Ozil. Not so much Mesut Ozil the player, but Mesut Ozil the situation, which is his salary and the fact that we're our Arsenal Football Club getting value for money. Now, if you only play 40% of the games, then it's clear that Arsenal are not getting value for money. So they are going to be aided and abetted by their manager in looking at a way to force Mesut Ozil out. Now, we don't know what's going on in the training ground. It's clear to me that he's not obeying Unai Emery's instructions. He's not singing for the same hymn sheet of as the other players. And in terms of like the board, the fact that things are being leaked openly without it being censored, without any emails going out to the journalists, it seems to me that they're ready to let him go. You know, we're hearing rumours about him being asked to go on loan. We're hearing rumours that he's been offered a payoff so he can go. It doesn't bode well if the club is not squashing those rumours. But you know, in conclusion to what I'm going to say, I don't see Mesut Ozil being part of being at Arsenal Football Club in the 2019 to 20 season. The team has moved away from Mesut Ozil, and the club have distanced themselves from the old regime.
Can I jump in there, Ryan?
Yeah, go on, yeah.
Yeah, alongside what Kenny said, I would add that Mesut Ozil, of course, we all know can be a positive. For me, he's a 1 in 4 game player, so I would have not persisted with him a long time ago. I would have got rid of that idea because the amount of money that he's taken out of the club and the amount of consistency we get back they don't equate. So he can be a negative, and so I think, you know, when you've got a pressing system that's working so well and you want to implement it, that can become a huge negative to the result of the team if you've got one player who doesn't press. And, you know, in my coaching, if I have a luxury player like that and we're going to press, he sits on the bench. In fact, he doesn't play at all until the game is won, because one player isn't in position for the press. They get out of the press, and your press becomes a negative tactic. So I think that's the way that Emery thinks in regards to the bigger games. I also think that playing him at all, I don't expect for him to play on Friday, and this is why. I don't think that I think the club are trying to get him out, and because of his wages more than anything else, and you know that could buy 3 or 4 very good players. And, you know, he is an injury-prone player. I think we've all seen that. Whether we believe that or not, I don't know if I fully believe it. But if they're trying to get him out, and even David Ornstein came out and said, you know, and he rarely comes out and says much of anything unless it's factual. He said the club are trying to get him out. Well, if you're desperately trying to get rid of him to bring other players in, and we don't have money unless he leaves, that kind of thing, then why would you risk playing an injury-prone player? And I think that's got to be a part of this decision making. And then if you bring Denis Suarez into this, if we get Denis Suarez, that's a player in a very, very similar position with a very similar style. And you're not going to convince him to come if he's just going to sit on the bench most of the time like he has at Barcelona. So I'm sure he's got some form of playing time guarantees, so to speak. So, and then Mkhitaryan comes back anytime now. That's a player who can play the same position. I just don't see where he's going to fit in based on the way Emery's been behaving.
Can I make a point?
After you, Nikki. Away you go.
Yeah. In regards to this, I think that we get bogged down by the fact that he has this wage, and everyone says, what does he takes so much out of the club, what does he bring to it? What he brings to it, as someone who I work in an economic background. I know how cash flow and profit loss and everything works. And what he brings to it is his name. And the fact of the matter is, in the Far East, in Africa, in America, where they all know his name and they all buy his shirts with his name on, they generate a lot of revenue. So yes, he does, as a wage, take a lot out of the club. But to actually turn around and say he doesn't actually contribute anything back in regards to financial matters is completely false, because yes, there are other players now that have come in, but for a long, long time, the only player that was generating those sales abroad was Ozil in the Far East, in the markets that were actually buying a lot of merchandise. And I completely agree with what you're saying in regards to his playing and stuff. He's got to fit into the system. He's got to toe the line. But I think it's actually quite telling that last week when we lost, everybody was saying to a person that what the game needed was Ozil, and he wasn't even on the bench to be brought on. So the fact of the matter is, yeah, all right, he's not going to play every match. He's not going to be a starter as such. Then we're not going to build the team around him. And there are other players you can bring in, but to actually just keep using the wage is maybe a false thing, because yes, but even if he goes, all that money doesn't automatically then go on new players. You don't get £350,000 back in your hand to use on other players. You have overheads, you have FFP, you have things like that that are going to restrict who you buy. So I don't see that he's going to stay long term, because I think Emery doesn't want him there, and I think it's patently obvious. But my point is only that it's not just what he takes out, because he does generate a lot of cash revenue that could be used on transfers. I mean, all those sales of merchandise, of shirts in all these countries do count towards going towards a transfer fee. I mean, TV rights don't, but revenue does. And whereas I agree that he's probably going to leave, he's not going to play every single match, he's going to have to fit in where he needs to fit in. He's not that much of a leech, if you see what I mean.
I think from my point of view, when his contract was extended, the official line that come out of the club was it will cost us more to replace him. One factor which I think is being overlooked as regards to Ozil is his age. I think he's 30 years old. You wonder going forward with his age, how long he would he's got left in the tank. You know, you get players retiring at 35, 36, for example. You know, he's not. If he was in his early to mid 20s, then you could make a case for persisting and looking at how to accommodate long term. But I think with his age as well, and Emery knowing that he wants to go with a style of play, he wants everybody singing off the same hymn sheet, and looking at the type of qualities. Also, as well, it's from my point of view, obviously speaking to professional players and managers on a regular basis, it's also quite a simple fact in football. But not all managers fancy certain players and think are going to like every single player they come across in their squads. And it's all about opinions. And in this case, Emery's, I think he's made his opinion quite clear. And I can't see him personally leaving in January, but I think he may well leave in the summer.
You know, I think adding on to this, I do understand all your points. I do. You know, Nicky brought up a fantastic point as well, to the extent that obviously I've got a massive Twitter account, and most of the people, my followers, are from our fans from the diaspora, not just in Europe, but you know, Asia, you know, Africa, Australia, and America, and they are massive Mesut Ozil fans. Like I said, because I think what's happened is that the way he plays is very, very, very pleasing in the eye, and as Nicky says, he's a massive name. I mean, in terms of like the name, I'm not talking about performance, the name. I don't think I've seen a player that big as you know, like last time we had names like that at the football club was probably, in terms of like their attractiveness to our diaspora abroad, was probably like Bergkamp, Henri, Perez, and then maybe Francesc Fabregas. But I do understand the situation. One from the club, but I think what I do still believe that it's all about kind of distance himself from the old regime, and I think it's just Unai. I think in mitigation to Unai Emery, I know Unai Emery hasn't just come in there and said to Mesut Ozil, "I don't fancy, I don't want you in his teams." He's given Mesut opportunities to do, to do that. He played in the first game against Chelsea. Sorry, first game against Man City, but the game against Chelsea was very poignant to the extent that he took him off with about 24 minutes ago because I was at the bridge, that thing, and his contribution or lack of it was shouted out. And I think since then, we've seen situations where Mesut Ozil's even been injured or we're told he's injured, and it's been like he hasn't played consistently as we'd like. There was a comeback he made against Cardiff, and then there was a Newcastle, and he was playing a good set of games. He missed Fulham for injury. He had a fantastic game against Leicester, and he was excellent. He played very well against Liverpool, and then the downside came again. The doubts in Unai Emery. We had the game against Crystal Palace in the end of October where Palace pressed us all over the field. He's taken off again. Wolves he struggled against Wolves, and I think since then there's been I think that's what I think Unai's made up his mind, and I think what it was is that again it's what we're all saying. It's just singing off the same hymn sheet, and I think that's the problem we've got. I'm sure that if Mesut Ozil sang of the same hymn sheet and he had the same sort of work rate as his counterparts like De Bruyne, Eriksen, Salah, he would definitely be part of this team, and I think that's the problem. And I'm going to say something that people are going to be surprised about. Mesut Ozil has got so much ability as a footballer. He's the most naturally gifted footballer I've seen in years. He is better in terms of skill and technique than Salah. He's better than David Silva. He's better than Bernardo Silva. He's better than Eriksen. He's better than KDB. However, the problem he's got is that all of those players buy into what their manager wants them to do. They're not expecting special tactics and privileges like a free roll. What they do is that their work rate is fantastic because they've got demanding managers. You can't play for Klopp and not buy into his work rate, especially off the ball and his high press. You can't do that for Guardiola. He's played for Barcelona where everyone talks about the tiki-taka, but what people don't really recognise is how they try to win the ball back. Mesut Ozil wouldn't be able to play for those teams. Pochettino, you know how Pochettino plays. He likes to play out the back. He also likes to play at a very high tempo. And then when they haven't got the ball, they hunt in packs. All those players that I've mentioned who are not on Mesut Ozil's level buy into their manager's tactics. Unfortunately, Mesut hasn't been able to do that. Under Arsene, we've tried him in different positions. We've tried him as a false number 9. We've tried on the right. We've even tried him. No club has worked harder to get the best out of Mesut Ozil than this. Unfortunately, now it's that, as like Mike says, the Mesut Ozil experience probably hasn't worked for us. It's a shame, but I think in footballing terms, there is going to be a part in the ways.
Ryan, can I just add one more thing on the Ozil?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Couple more things that dawn on me. One is that Mesut Ozil, even when he's playing well, tends to slow the game down. If you're counter-attacking and you give Ozil the ball, he never uses his right foot, always has to bring it back onto his left foot. And my observation of Emery's style of play that people have been sort of, in a quandary trying to figure out what is our style. I call Emery's style vertical. I think he likes to play in a forward-thinking manner and moves the ball vertically far more than, the desire to keep possession, hit it sideways, take your time. I think he's a very vertical coach. I think Mesut Ozil slows that whole thing down. And that's just Mesut Ozil's style. And I don't think it jives with Emery's. The other piece of it for me is accountability. I think that the single biggest thing that Emery has done for Arsenal Football Club in a positive manner is that he has made our whole squad accountable. And that was our single biggest need for me in the Wenger era, is that Wenger didn't. And I think that was clear for so long. And that bred the cancerous attitude that our squad showed in the last period of the Wenger tenure. And, you know, if you're a coach and you stand up, or if you're a boss and you stand up in front of your group of people and you say you're expected to do this, this, and this, and then you've got the guy in your workplace and on your field or whatever it might be who gets paid triple what the next guy gets paid, 6 times more than probably everybody else in the squad. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but you get my point. And he won't do it, or he won't do it consistently. Then what do you do? Because if you decide to just let him be the luxury and try to communicate that to the rest of the squad that this guy has a different set of rules, then you lose respect in any workplace. So I am so happy that we have a coach that is doing this, and I'm sad that Mesut Ozil won't conform. I wish he would, because like everybody's saying here, Ozil's a wonderful player. Like Kenny said, he's probably the most talented creator in the league still. But if you make that statement as a boss, then that's it. It's game over. You have to stick by it. And then the piece of the Neymar piece for Emery, his personal issues that he had last season with arguably the most difficult, egotistical player in the world right now, however talented the guy is, that he had a nightmare. I think he was told what to do from the guys in the management at PSG. He was told what to do with Neymar, what he could and couldn't do. He comes to Arsenal, and I'm thinking, there is no way that he's going to put up with that again. That was probably the biggest noose around his neck the whole season at PSG. And so Mesut Ozil has obviously suffered, because Emery's just not going to jive with that, is he?
No,
Can I just make one more point?
Yeah, go on.
About sometimes it's not just what you bring to the team on the pitch. If you look at last week when we lost and Ozil wasn't even in the squad, as someone said, one of you said, they looked like their best friend had been dropped. The whole attitude was terrible last week.
Yeah.
And Ozil wasn't part of the squad. The fact that he was on the bench this week may have added to the positive attitude. All right, he didn't play, but because he was part of the squad, the team had a more positive feel about them. There wasn't that distraction there. So sometimes it doesn't necessarily matter what you do on the pitch. Obviously it does in regards to the result, but maybe him being on the bench, all right, he didn't play, but maybe him being on the bench and being included went towards the positive attitude the team had, because he was an option there. He wasn't an option at all the week before. He was removed. So you've got to sometimes think, what does a teammate bring in a positive way? A bit like the whole team spirit sometimes. They have got such a great team spirit. You see it with videos of training. You see it with videos on their mobiles after games. You know, it's on Instagram and stuff. So sometimes that positive impact of even having them around does have an impact, you know, does have a good impact and does count towards the positivity of the team.
Yeah, again, all great points made there. As I touched on last week on my show, I mentioned the Neymar situation over Ozil. And yeah, because that was when we announced Unai was our new coach. A lot of the media were saying, well, he don't really be able to deal with the likes of Mesut Ozil with our big players, because at PSG, what happened there? But with PSG, the owners, they brought in Neymar. From day one had nothing to do with him from day one. So it's always going to be an uphill struggle, and you can never drop him no matter what, because the owners wouldn't allow it. So I think coming in, and then obviously he's silly. He's obviously he's hearing all this. He's like, I'm going to make a point to prove. Anyone that does step out of line, I'm going to make an example of. And Mesut Ozil has been that one this season where from day one, quite literally, hasn't been conforming, hasn't stepped up, and now Emery's putting his foot down and won't let up. I don't blame him because we have been this for a long time because that was one of the big arguments with Wenger the last few years of Wenger that no matter what, he had his favourite players, and no matter what, in form or not, they were going to play. Moving on now quickly, just on that, we've got a bit of a topic I don't think I'll be talking about today, but Koscielny yesterday, man of the match performance, and that weeks we've been talking about, weeks and months we've been saying we needed a leader and this, that, and the other, and from the first second to the end, he led he led for example since he's come back from his injury. What did you guys actually think of Koscielny's performance as a whole?
I thought he deserved to win man of the match. And as I mentioned earlier on when we started the pod, I watched the players in the warm-up, and he in particular, he seemed to be a bit more present. He seemed to have a bit more charisma about him. I think in the past he's he's had his moments, like for example the Griezmann goal in the semi-final of the Europa League, going back to when he first signed in the final against Birmingham. He's been with us for such a long time. I don't know if it's just what I'm going to say might sound a bit strange, but bear with me. I don't know if it's for him. He knows that the end is coming, and he just kind of wants to go out in like a blaze of glory in terms of positive performances and making sure that he gives a good account of himself. I thought yesterday, it's a good goal. And but you've also got to remember it's only one 90-minute game. He was out for such a long time. I mean, this is the same Koscielny at the Southampton game when he returned. You could say it was the reason why we didn't pick up a point in that game at the very least. With the in communication with Leno, for example. It's a good sign, but you've also got to take into account his age going forward. I think it's a boost to have a captain like that put in such a good individual performance, but I think it's also important not to go over the top and take it for what it is. And should he play going forward in other big games, if those performances come to the fore again, then we can start to think about it being something a bit more consistent.
Mike, what about you?
Yeah, I was thrilled for him. Like James said, I wasn't at the game, but I saw a true leader, and I've not seen that since he came back. I put that down to the fact that he's been playing largely with Socrates and Mustafa, and it almost looked like there were too many chiefs there. And Koscielny, I think, is inherently a fairly quiet guy, so maybe he was deferring. Maybe he was deferring to those guys vocally, but he looked like he really stepped up. He looked like he was part of a group of players that had a very good week working on the defensive side of the game in practice, is what it looked like to me. He was just fired up. So I was thrilled for him. My last thought, Ryan, is that one thing that I guess none of us can probably fully appreciate is that being a professional athlete like all these guys are, we don't experience in our daily lives, that we get injured, we get out for, a few weeks or a few months or a year from our profession and what that does to us physically. So, we're all very impatient in society these days, and in football definitely. So, he's come back, and I suppose he's been playing for a month now. So, retrospectively, if we were to have a chat at the end of the season and say, was it okay and fair that Koscielny took a month to get his groove back? I'd say everybody would say that's fair enough. But when you're in the moment, people don't have the patience for him to get his groove, do they?
Kenny,
yeah. In terms of like Koscielny, I think both to the points that be made. One thing about Laurent, since he's come out of injury, he's had a very, very bad, like I said, Achilles injury. Which, to be honest, he was playing on that for a good couple of years. Rotating his dentures, and to all sense and purposes, he should have had the operation in order to clean out the injury and sort it out. And he just played and played and played. A lot of it's because Arsenal involved in like big games over the years, the FA Cup final, and also it's to do with Euro 2016, and also he wanted to. You didn't want to sort of have the operation and then not miss out on the World Cup. And then eventually, sadly, in Madrid, the whole thing gave way. The thing with what Laurent's had to do is that since he's come back from injury, we've had to rush Laurent because we've had injuries ourselves in certain things. We've lost Rob Holding, Mavropanos hasn't been there. Like I said, there was an injury to Mustafi. So what we've had to do is that he's had to, instead of getting fit on a training field, he's had to get fit by playing football matches. So what's happening is that the first game, he's clearly not fit against Southampton. So, and like I said, we're giving him protection, not so much in like ability, but just in terms of numbers. So what's happening is that Southampton, he's looking rusty. Ings gave him a bit of a hard time, although the winner was completely down to Leno. But Leno's panicking because he knows Koscielny's not 100% fit, and then we've had to drop him a bit and then bring him back. Sadly, he was part of that Liverpool debacle as well. And then last week we had to play a free. Slowly, the only positives out of those games is that Laurent's getting himself back into full fitness. And I think yesterday, that's when the match fitness is finally come back. And like Chelsea was a very good opponent for him because simple state that there wasn't like a striker to sort of play on his shoulder to give him a hard time like Diego Costa would have done previously. And maybe if Olivier started, he probably would have backed into him. And what it was is that our players helped Laurent, not just helped Laurent, they helped Socrates as well, where they worked hard off the ball. They gave him the protection he needs. So what's happening is that when the crosses were coming in, he could concentrate and organise on the back four. He didn't have to worry about what his midfield was doing. But saying that, moving forward, he's going to have other tests. But one thing is that I do expect him to that to be a blueprint for the rest of the season. As everyone says, Laurent is a quiet guy. He's like very like I said, goes into his shell. He doesn't like people having a go at him, and he's not one of those vocal captains. He tries to lead by example. And I just hope that Laurent carries on his form to the form from yesterday to the rest of the season.
Lastly, what about yourself, Nikki?
I think that going back to what I said originally, I think that as soon as they, the two of them, him and Socrates, managed to successfully deal with their first test of the match, I think that the whole team relaxed. And I think that once he's playing in a solid way, and obviously Socrates as well, because I think a lot of the man of the match performance yesterday was because Socrates stepped up as well. So I think the two of them together were just really, really good. And going back to the point of the return from injury and perhaps returning too quickly, the trouble with some of the fans they're part of what I call the pot noodle generation, where everything is like has to be done instantly, like instant food, instant everything. And because they've returned, they don't see that he's returned from injury, but maybe he isn't fully match fit yet. Just because he's on the pitch doesn't mean they say he's going to play to the best of his ability. And I think that obviously they maybe rushed him back quicker than they would have done if they'd had the luxury of not having injuries and stuff. But I just think that he is coming back into a groove. Obviously, this match will have helped his confidence. It would have helped the whole defence's confidence, apart from obviously Hector's injury, which was unfortunate. But they now know that when we need it, the defence will be there. I mean, that was something that was missing in games leading up to that. We had a very shaky. We were nervous about the defence, and as I said, as soon as they made their first successful defensive, they passed their first successful defensive test yesterday, I relaxed watching it. I sort of thought that, we've got this because of them, because of the two of them. And I think that does make a difference. Because he is quiet, I don't know whether he is a natural leader, but he is solid enough to be the leader, but it's just maybe you need someone a bit more vocal there as well. So I can see why he perhaps wouldn't be a natural choice for a captain, but he is solid enough to be part of that team.
I think Ryan's going to be back any minute now.
Yeah, I've just tried and come back into shot, guys. It's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed it. I shall catch up with you all soon. And Kenny, I might see you at the Cardiff game, maybe.
Oh, you come on! Like I said, I'm part of the furniture at the Emirates. I must admit, when I was a kid, the Emirates Stadium was like a rubbish dump where we had unused double deckers there, where we used to, for some reason, we used to play football around there. Very dangerous. You shouldn't have dived around there. There was loads of broken glass.
Yeah. Well, I shall see you at the Cardiff game. It's been a pleasure, everybody. Thanks. Really enjoyed it. I'll see you soon.
See you soon, James.
Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jake.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Touching on injuries, and I just had a question why we're talking about Cristiano. Bellerin obviously got an injury yesterday, and there's a question in the chat basically asking, did we rush him back too soon with his previous injury? And that might have been a repercussion of what happened last night, because there's rumours now he could be out for the rest of the season. And is he going to be a huge loss now if that's the case?
Well, it's hard to say if we rushed him back without knowing the ins and outs of the medical situation with his previous injury. I didn't think at the time that he was being rushed back. Maitland-Niles was actually getting into a bit of a groove. I was thinking about the Liverpool away game where he played very well amongst a group of guys that did not. So my assumption was that they were taking time with Bellerin. Yesterday was tragic, wasn't it? And he's one that Emery's improved this year. And it's not good. And it's not good because Lichtsteiner, even though I think everybody loves the fact that he's a real man and he's a brute and they like that side of him. I think he's brought a lot to the club in that regard. On the field, he seems somewhat of a liability more often than not. Jenkinson, I think, has actually improved the little that he's played, but I don't know that he's the answer. Here's a question for everybody. There's a couple of other guys that are not being really mentioned. One is his name Julio Pleguezuelo. I don't know if I said that right. I think he's a centre-back, but built more like a full-back from the youth team. The second one is, I know that they're saying that Callum Chambers doesn't have a return clause, but money talks, and I know we've got so much of this money right now, right? I'm wondering if we could give him a few million to get the guy back. He was wonderful today, of course, playing defensive midfield, but he's played right back before, and he's a better answer than Lichtsteiner. First of all, I'd go with Maitland-Niles, but if that doesn't work out, I would try to look at the Pleguezuelo and Callum Chambers option. What about you guys?
I think what's happening is that we've played Lichtsteiner out of position. When Lichtsteiner had his horror show at Anfield, he was playing in a back three. We kind of, back three, centre back. We know that Lichtsteiner's played his best football at right back. And I'm not just saying that he should walk back in the team, because I do think we should look at that option again. We also Mustafi as well. Mustafi has played right back for the German national side. I know he's playing he's played when he played in Spain as well, an option. And obviously, Ainsley Maitland-Niles is a good call as well. My only worry about Ainsley Maitland-Niles is that he, in terms of his pace, that overshadows the other two players I mentioned. But it's his final ball I do worry about, his ability to get down the sides and actually create with crosses. So, I do like that guy that you set up. I think you can pronounce his name better than me, Mike. But yeah, there are options that I think Unai will have to consider. But again, he has to he has to be looking at those players in training and how they fit into his system.
I think that I'm going to call him Pleg because I don't know how to say his name. I think that he is a good prospect. And I think that what I do like about Emery is that he is looking as though he is going to utilise the better prospects from the youth sides and try and incorporate them in the team in some way. And I'm a fan of that because I think that too often in the past, yes, we played them in cup games and things like that, but we didn't really use them to the best of their ability, and they were sold on, and someone else got the benefit from them. So the fact that he looks as though he is going to use the youth that show the potential and try and fit them within the system is a good thing. And when I'm going to call him Plague. When he played, he did look as though he would adhere to that system. And I think that someone like that might be a stopgap until we can afford something else. Maitland-Niles as well is doing really well, and he is sort of getting into a groove, as you say, and finding his feet. We are going to miss Bellerin, though. I mean, that's the whole point is that he is good at what he does, and there isn't a straight replacement for him because he is quite a unique player. So I think that to try and find an exact replica would be the wrong thing, but trying to jig the system maybe and fit others in would be the way to go. Obviously, we're going to have the sponsorship money coming in the summer that we may be able to utilise more and get a more permanent defender. To panic buy might be the worst thing you can do. Because we've done that in the past and that hasn't worked out either. So I think that you're right, that there are options there. It's just a question of maybe not going like for like, but trying to sort of jig the system so that everyone can work together. And there are signs that you could do that. With the defensive display yesterday, there are options there. And I think that Plague would fit into that. I think that he's willing to learn. He's a sponge, if you see what I mean. So... yeah, utilise our youth now and get the best from them, and rather than sell them on and let someone else have the benefit of it.
Yeah, exactly. You just got to look at the Chelsea situation. Their youngsters, Hudson and Doy, being heavily linked with Bayern Munich. That looks like that's going to happen any time this next couple of weeks or so. And you've also got one of Reece Nelson out on loan in Germany. Jordan Sancho from Man City has been, I think he's loaned to Dortmund, but even he's pulling up trees over there. And it is a shame that just ourselves, that other clubs as well, that are not really giving the young English talent a chance. You don't give that has an effect on the international stage going forward. They're not getting chances with their respective clubs. And getting the experience, and what chance have we got going forward once this current couple of England players move on?
Ryan, can I jump in here and just add one more piece?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
It's a shame that we don't have money, because there's a player that's going to get snapped up in the summer. I've no doubt about it. Plays in the Premier League. Who is Aaron Wan-Bissaka at Crystal Palace. And I've watched him. Yeah, over here in the US, we get better coverage of football than you guys do.
Oh my God!
In the
What
UK,
a player!
Which is,
what a player!
Yeah, I tell you. And here's the thing, right? Gareth Southgate's going to have a real dilemma because he's already got Kieran Trippier, Kyle Walker, is it Trent Alexander-Arnold, who are all fabulous options at right back. But I'm telling you, I've watched this boy all season. He is unbelievable. And I know that big clubs are already being reported, but Arsenal, I've said all season on my blog that if we could get him as an option to Bellerin, I also think that his main attribute is his quickness over 3 or 4 yards. He would be a wonderful defensive mid, a Torreira backup. But he has the highest tackle ratio in the whole of Europe. Unbelievable statistic for a kid. And if we only had 20 to 30 million or whatever it would take to get that guy, there's your answer right there. But we don't. So why did I say that, right?
Not yet, anyway.
Yeah.
That's another question in the chat before we wrap up. Last question, sort of thing. With players coming to the end of their contracts, like Welbeck, Koscielny, Czech's retiring, Nick Steiner end of his contract, and amongst a few others, freeing up a lot of wages in the process. Do you think Kroenke will back us in the summer? Will back Emery, so to say, and invest?
He doesn't need to invest. I think what's happening is that Stan Kroenke is brought into a self-funding model. That's what he's brought into, and that's what Arsenal are.
Yeah,
a lot of panic is going on because people think we have got no money. They're panicking, but all about the sort of regulations that we can only get loan players. The only reason why we're going to get loan players is because we've overspent on our budget. That's all it is. The fact of the matter is that a lot of our budget has been taken over by, like I said, buying new players, the salaries of the new players that we're buying, and also we've had situations where we had to renew people's contracts. So for the calendar, so by the end of the season, we'll be able to make this business. As you said, Ryan, as well, we are going to be players are going to be coming out to the end of the contract. Nicky mentioned about like the Adidas deal that's coming through as well. So in that respect, we're going to be self-funding. But I think the thing about Arsenal is that we have to get in the Champions League, because that will help out as well. Because you don't look at it, 2 years without Champions League football, we've missed out on ticket prices. We're charging £50 for the Champions League group category A games, whether it be £62. You also got the sponsorship, the advertising through UEFA. Remember, if we participate in UEFA, you get money for participation, you get money for every point you get. And then when you get into losses, you make even more money. So I'm no mathematician. I think Nicky might be able to help me this, but I think that over the last 2 years we've probably we're down about £100 million.
Yeah,
so,
we have. It's a no-brainer. Once you get into the Champions League, you're opening up a whole new market in the whole world. Through the whole world, rightly or wrongly. The burgeoning markets in the Far East and the African nations and Australia, America, all the ones that are up and coming, they tend to watch like the European games. They're the glamour ties. So if you're seeing your team play in the Champions League, they're wanting to go out to buy your merchandise. They're starting to follow your team. They're starting to invest in shirts. The whole juggernaut machine starts rolling once you get into the Champions League. You're completely right, and it has lost us a hell of a lot of money, and that's what you need. That's where we've fallen down, because we was in the Champions League for so many years on a continual roll. We've missed that money, and that's what it's not so much people not investing in the last couple of years. It's the fact that we've lost the money from the Champions League, but people see it as our owner isn't investing. But it's a whole mismatch of things. Economics it's just like, it's not just one thing. You can't point to it and say that it's because he doesn't put the money in, because he could turn around tomorrow, put his hand in his pocket and give you £220 million. You can't spend it.
Exactly.
Because of the FFP, you cannot spend the £220 million even if he gave it to you. So it's not a black and white issue.
Mike, have you got anything to say?
Yes, sir. I think that the best thing that could maybe happen to Arsenal Football Club in regards to Kroenke ever being able to support us is if in February the LA Rams win the Super Bowl. And bear with me here, so I think everybody knows that that's his team and that's his love. That's his son's love as well, and of course he's involved in our club too, along with the basketball. They own, I think, 3 or 4 franchises here, but the LA Rams are doing very, very well. Kroenke threw a lot of money at that because he had no choice. He was told when he moved the Rams from St. Louis that for a team in the Hollywood area, for the public to buy into the product and to attend the games, when I think that those fans in California are more fickle than anywhere else in the world. He would have to put out a real product. He's done that, and I don't follow the football that closely, but I think they're very close to winning the whole thing this year.
Yeah, they're playing in the Super Bowl final.
Yeah, so I think that. So I say that to say this. You know, I think we've all experienced this. When somebody wins something, you get the bug, right? So I think that the only hope that we've ever got of him putting money in, and I respect what Nikki says. She's right. I believe that it's more complicated than just putting your hand in your pocket, but is if he wins the Super Bowl and then decides he wants to do something with Arsenal that we have the potential as a club to do. Beyond that, I think that there's a lot of wages that are going to be available in the summer. I don't know about transfer money, but with Welbeck, Czech, I'm sure El Neni won't be here next season. Lichtsteiner, I think, is on 90 grand a week, probably won't be here next year. I'm imagining one of the centre-backs will be gone, if not two of them. You got Mesut Ozil, of course, if he lives. Right, Mkhitaryan. I don't think Mkhitaryan will be at Arsenal next year. He's got 175 grand a year. So you've got about 600,000-700,000 a week that you've got to spend on the wage side, Ryan. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was the thing when that's the thing of our fan base. If the media says something, the majority of our fan base go, "Well, that must be true," and then straight away they're on their attack. They don't think, stand back for a second and do the logical thing of thinking it through and go, "Hang on, But they've got 2 and 2 together and makes 7. It must be all his fault." And then
you know what it is, Ryan, can I just cut in? You know what it is with the media? You've got to realise, right, is that I think when obviously you're a lot younger than a lot of us. Back in the day, football journalism was on the back page, and that's where it stayed, the back page. And all they did was just talk about the match and the kind of matches. Now, you've got to realise right now is that the game is so massive that, you know, like I said, that clubs are very protective of what comes out of the club. You know, like I said, they know they've got to work with the media. So what they do is that they say we can't confirm or we deny. So what we have is a lot of journalists, they're under pressure from their editor to, like I said, come out of all these like fairy tales. And I think what it is that you'll have someone who says, "Oh yeah, he's in with the club." So you have someone like John Cross. Oh, with John Cross, because he's in with the Arsenal, he knows Arsenal. He says it, and you've got this guy as well now on BBC, David Ornstein. If David Ornstein says something, it's true. And I think what it is that every journalist, whether it's online journalist, part of the new media generation or just, they're under pressure to get a story. And what's happened with the clubs is that the clubs are not kind of playing ball with these journalists by not going up to them and censoring their stories. They're letting them come out with this nonsense, because at the end of the day, the club has to, you know, like I said, you know, like talk to their fans, and they do it for the media. So what they do is they just give them little drips and drabs. Probably some of it is probably not true at all, but they give Ornstein all sorts of little things, and Ornstein turns to like something that's only about 2% into 25%, and he's believed. You know what I mean? And I think that's modern journalism for you.
Yeah. I think it's quite easy just to blame the owner. That's the thing. I mean, what they see is they see this guy that is rich as anything, and they think to themselves, "Why isn't he helping us? Why isn't he giving us money?" But the fact of the matter is, a football club is a business. When you have a guy that's running a normal business on the high street, they don't go home and put their own money in. They invest, yes, but it's all self-sustaining in the end. They have to sell the product to gain the money, to get more product, and that's how it works. And people don't understand. They just think that there's this billionaire sitting there with all this wads of cash. Why isn't he giving us this cash? He can't. He just can't do that, because even if he did that, we can't spend it. There's so many rules and regulations. There are ways, believe me, I know, there are ways for you to do things in a legal way, but perhaps not an ethical way, that some clubs, I am sure, have worked out, and you know which ones I'm talking about. But
Chelsea.
Yeah, and Man City. And there are ways that they can do it. Sorry? Man United. Yeah. They all have very clever people that can get them around certain issues. But there is a case then, do you want your club to go down that route? Do you want your club to turn into this club that is going to be always walking a line on the edge of ethical? And you just got to think to yourself that it isn't as easy as a guy sitting there handing you £220 million, because even if he did, you couldn't use it.
Yeah, again, I totally agree with what you're all saying. I'm just going to wrap the show up now, but before we do that, predictions for Friday night's game now. Friday night game. Thanks, BBC. Yeah, so what sort of score predictions looking for going into that game? Kenny, want to start?
If we replicate yesterday's performance and Man United playing our hands, I reckon we'll win. We were not going to keep the clean sheet, I'm afraid. Sorry about friends, but I can see us winning about 2-1. 2-1 Arsenal.
Okay. Mike?
Ooh, gosh, it's so hard because we don't know what team he's going to put out at all, do we? We're going to play some kids. He won't play all the kids and the subs, but he may play a few, and United may see this as wanting to keep their momentum going. They're doing so well. Gosh, it's hard, isn't it? Just not knowing. I'm going to stick my neck out and say we're going to win on penalties and Leno will be the hero.
Will be a goal, will be check.
Oh, yeah.
No replay.
Oh, yeah.
Check. No, there'll be a replay.
Yeah.
But check bingo, won't it?
Well, I got that completely wrong. Can I have a second go?
Yeah, no.
All right, so we're going
to
yeah, 8-0. Pat Jennings is the hero, right? Let me get it even more wrong. Let's go with Arsenal's going to win 3-2.
Arsenal, okay. I don't know if I'll be standing after that, but yeah, I'll take it. Nikki?
Yeah.
I do think that even though Man United are on a roll, I just think that we still have the better of them, so to speak, and they will be worried now, perhaps more so than they would have done pre yesterday's game. But I do think we will win. I don't think it will be by much. I don't think we'll keep a clean sheet. I don't think we will. I think they'll both be up for the game. I think it will be a good game, and I think that it would be sort of a 2-1, 3-2 scenario to us. But I do think we do have the edge, and especially with the confidence of this weekend, I can see us winning it by a goal.
Okay. Right, my one now. As I've been saying to people outside around yesterday, I've taken into account his home. If it was Old Trafford and going by there for, I say they'd nick it. But because we're at our place, we've just come off the back of a huge win for our league stand up where we're going forward now. And we will want to be the ones that knock them off their perch, off their little run, and just sort of put the feel. Here we go again. We're going 4-way now. Yeah, I think I'll have to agree with Ken. I think it'll be 2-1. I think they'll go ahead. Rashford will score. We'll come back just before half time, and then about 50 minutes to go. Lacazette winner. Personally. Yeah, might as well wrap it up now. Thanks, guys, for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Nice to meet you both.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
You too, Ken. You too, Nikki. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate your time, and I'll try to get you on again some point this season as well. I'll DM you guys when you're all free, and I'll try to get back on. And I'll get the other guys as well. Yeah. Thanks again, and until next time, which will be a Saturday, because of the bloody whole FA Cup match being on a Friday night. The next review show will be on next Saturday now. And until then, up the Arsenal.